proud Bucknell grad. And as Dan said about the stresses of today's kids, I want to say that I don't believe that I could ever be accepted to Bucknell today with the application that I submitted 35 plus years ago. And I'm very serious about that, because I know we like to say those darn kids or kids today or anything like that. Kids today are working harder than we ever worked at their age, whether it be in school, in community service because they need it for college apps or anything like, or just because they believe it. They get themselves over-involved, over-scheduled, and over-stressed. So as parents and grandparents, if they're, and I'm not a grandparent yet, hopefully someday, but if we can take opportunities to tell kids it's okay, just relax, take a bit of a breather, I think we ought to do that. Doesn't mean that we don't hold high expectations for them and want the best for them, but mental health is an issue that I'll return to a little bit later, is a huge one right now for all of us involved in public education. It speaks to those changing dynamics and changing challenges that Dan was speaking about earlier. When I graduated from Bucknell, I became a math teacher for a few years, then was fortunate enough to do 4 more years of full-time study to do my doctoral work. I loved it so much that I left working and went back to school again for 4 years, and I got to figure out a way to go back to school a 3rd time if I can figure it out. But when I left my graduate work and became a school administrator, I had the very, very great fortune to work with a gentleman by the name of Bob Ward. He was the principal, I was the assistant principal, and I would just sit and listen. And I listened to him and some of the stories that he would tell, and he would tell stories of being a school administrator in the late 60s, early 70s, when racial tensions were at a very high, at the very height, and there's still obviously work to be done in that area, but you know, he worked at a time in which there were riots. He worked in the Detroit Public Schools before moving over to where I eventually met him. And so when I start to think about, oh my gosh, it's so hard, my job is so hard, I say, no. You know, we all have our challenges, it's just different challenges of the day. And I think right now, those challenges really revolve around areas of trying to create balance. And that's why I maybe started with the idea of telling your kids it's okay to relax once in a while. We need to help to create some balance between our expectations for achievement and making sure that kids are have a positive mental health aspect, a positive self-image, but also we want to balance that so that we're not ensuring that only some kids achieve. We have to make sure that all kids achieve. And so you'll see at your tables I left a copy of our district's new strategic plan, Excellence and Equity. And I think this plan speaks to those two themes and is very, very important to our community and truly all communities. I'm sure Dan's has the same. But for a really, really long time, we only focused on excellence. And we let some kids not succeed. And we were okay with that. And I think those days have long since passed as we focus more and more on equity. And our definition of equity is changing as well. Equity does not mean equal. Equity means a fairness. And when we talk about equity, we first always thought about it as equity of opportunity. Every student might have the opportunity to participate in a particular program. Well, we can't stop there, because for one reason or another, and Dan mentioned the socioeconomic factors that are playing, in Lewisburg, our free and reduced price lunch has also doubled in the last decade. Right? We're not a community that's defined solely by Bucknell. We have to recognize that. We have to recognize that we have the entire spectrum of residents in many, many different situations. coming to us with many different issues, including food insecurity. So when we talk about equity, we want to frame it as, yes, we have opportunities for all kids, but then we have to take a very, very hard look at who's then participating. Because if a segment of our population either is choosing not to participate or for some reason can't participate, we have to break down those barriers as well. So we have to ensure that there is opportunity, we have to ensure equity and participation, and then finally we have to recognize that even if we have the opportunity, even if we get kids to the opportunity, some kids are going to need a little bit more time and resources to achieve that opportunity. So for us, as we're really looking forward into the next 5-year plan, we're looking at it in terms of not lowering our standards, continuing to pursue excellence, but really looking at how is it that we can ensure that all kids not only have the opportunity, but are participating and achieving at a level that reaches those measures of excellence. Now in here, you'll also find 4 goals. One is an academic goal, one is a social emotional goal, but one's a citizenship goal. And I did want to make sure to point out the fact that the district, probably very much in line with your mission and beliefs, very much believes in common good and what it means to be a citizen. This year, we're very fortunate we have a senior who's doing her senior project to ensure that all students who are of voting age are registered to vote by the time they turn 18 or just before, so that no one leaves the school as a senior graduate not registered to vote. So, and that's part of her senior project, which dovetails exactly with one of the objectives of our strategic plan to do just that. And I think the other piece of being a citizen is also taking a real initiative to help us stand back and listen and try to help each other understand others' points of view. It is very much, again, part of our plan as you look through here to ensure that we teach kids and one another that everyone is worthy of dignity and respect, and that we need to help to advocate for ourselves while understanding others is going to be a huge factor in repairing a lot of what we see going on around us right now. So I won't soapbox on that one. I'll just say it's out there and we're working on it. We very much appreciate the support that we receive from our community and the surrounding communities. We know that we cannot do it alone. We know we cannot do it just with your financial support. We need to do it with, as my priest taught me once, we do it with our time, talent, and treasure. So yes, you are welcome in our schools anytime if you have the time and talent. Certainly we appreciate your tax support, but we'd also like to see you in the buildings. We'd like to see you helping out in any way that you can, because again, it would help our kids to just understand you, their community, and others. So thank you very much.
So I'll just remind everyone, we do have microphones in the back. Janice will be passing them around. It makes it a whole lot easier for us to hear each other if you do use a microphone when you ask your questions, and it'd be helpful too if you identify to whom your question is directed. Our 2 community partners up here. So thanks for your cooperation.
I have a question, actually. You both could